Hey Mama, it's Jocelyn here, and welcome to the podcast. You are getting so close. You're at 37 weeks, only a few more weeks until sweet little baby is born, give or take a few, and we will talk a little bit about that in today's episode. I am a fellow mom of 5, and I found pregnancy to be a really hard season. It tried me in all the ways, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and it was hard. And only through God's grace and through effort and time and practice did I find ways to find more positivity in pregnancy. And that is what I want to share with you on this podcast. Hi, I'm Jocelyn, fellow mom of 5 and host of the Positivity in Pregnancy and Motherhood podcast. I help pregnant women and mothers to find the positivity in their season of life through changing their thoughts to work for them and not against them. I help mothers find the small, doable steps in thought and action without making drastic changes to their everyday mom life. And I can help you. Let's find positivity during our pregnancies and in our motherhood together. Thanks for joining. Let's talk about some of the updates with baby. Baby is about the length of a bunch of kale, so they're around 20 inches still, give or take, as I have mentioned in the past episodes, and they are around 6.5 pounds now, give or take. They are gaining around an ounce a day, so they could still gain another pound before birth, and it just kind of depends. Some babies are going to be bigger and some are going to be smaller. At this point in pregnancy, your baby is likely head down. There are so many resources for flipping a baby if you have a breech baby. I didn't ever deal with a breech baby, and so I didn't have to use any of those things, but there are a lot of resources. If you want to check out Bridget Tyler's YouTube on 37 weeks, she lists a lot of different things that you can do to help flip a breech baby. Something I did implement in my 5th baby that I didn't do with any of my others, and I think helped tremendously, was spinning babies. Now, you're supposed to start that a little bit earlier in your pregnancy. I can't remember if I started around 20 or 30 weeks. I need to go back to the episodes and check. But anyways, I did mention that in past episodes, but it will probably help if you want to start implementing some of the things from spinning babies. I will put their website and a favorite video that kind of shows the exercises I did in the show notes, so if your baby is breech, you can start doing some of those exercises to hopefully shift your baby to be head down. Not a lot else was changing with baby per my research this week, but let's talk about you. Right now, you are what they call term, so that means your baby can be safely born and generally thrive outside the womb. Sometimes mamas do go early and sometimes they go later. Birth is safest for mama and baby when it starts on its own, though. And I agree with this. I have felt my body heals better after allowing it to go into labor naturally versus not, because I've had babies all the ways. I've had a C-section, I've had a VBAC, I've been induced, I've had the epidural, I've had 2 all-natural births. One was a little more traumatic than the other, but nonetheless, I can tell you from experience that healing-wise and how I felt after was very different when I went into labor on my own and chose that way versus the other times where, the induction I did choose, but that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But my body just felt like it healed better, more naturally. Now, I realize that is not always the case, and I realize that you don't always want that either, because labor and delivery is that. It's labor, and it can seem and be very, very painful. So I understand if you want the epidural or if you need the epidural. I totally have been there. It took me 3 babies in order that on my 4th I finally did it without the epidural, and I was still asking for the epidural during that 4th one. So I realized that sometimes you need the epidural, and I realized there are women who do need to be induced. Some of the research I did for today's episode, this was on the Mama Natural site, which will also be linked below with all of the other things I have talked about, was the Bishop score. So the Bishop score predicts vaginal birth with medical induction. And it measures things like with your cervix and baby's positioning and whatnot. So talk to your provider about the Bishop score, because that can help you know if you will need medical intervention to help get your baby here and safely delivered. Something else interesting is that your weight gain may kind of come to a halt, which will be nice for you. You've been gaining weight this whole pregnancy, and around this time your weight gain may start to stop, which can be kind of exciting. Another potentially not enjoyable part, though, can be urinary incontinence. So this can be basically leaking from your bladder. Now, this is not to be confused with the amniotic fluid that you will lose when your water breaks. So one of my babies, my water broke very quickly in like a burst. And 2 of my other babies, my water was more leaky. And so to note the differences between whether you have some urinary incontinence or whether your water is breaking, you can note the color. If it's yellow or if it smells like pee, it's pee. The vaginal discharge or the amniotic fluid, not vaginal discharge, the amniotic fluid is more clear and it doesn't smell or tends to have a sweeter smell. Now, urinary incontinence can come because the baby's head is on the bladder. And so you might have to do a few things to try and figure out what is what. The thing about amniotic fluid is it will keep leaking. So with my 5th pregnancy, my most recent one, I had slow leaking. And it took me a second to figure it out, but to me it wasn't, or at least for my body, it wasn't hard to figure out that I was leaking. Fluids were coming out of myself when I wasn't trying or on the pot, and anyway, you could also put a pad on and then see kind of color and smell from that way. So that's what I ended up doing, is putting on a pad, and then I talked to my doula as well, and she's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're leaking as well. So, or the amniotic fluid had started to break. Something else at this point, besides the urinary incontinence, is you may be having vaginal discharge. So that can be from your mucus plug being discharged, and that can also come 2 ways. It can come as a blob or just kind of over time. So if you're getting more vaginal discharge, that is normal. I will say that if you feel like your water is breaking, I would get in contact with your provider, because it's always good to be safe over sorry. And usually if your fluids are leaking or if your water is breaking or has broke, you're likely going to deliver baby within the next day or so. So that is exciting, but also can be a little bit scary and intimidating if that is what's happening. And with my 5th baby, he actually came a few weeks early too. So I wasn't expecting him to come a couple weeks early, but he came on his own. Like the water started breaking, and then the contractions started coming, and the contractions over time got stronger. So maybe I'll see if I can link his birth story in the show notes as well, because there was a lot that went on in ways that I coped with those contractions. So those are a few things to be dealing with. Is keep your eye out for your water breaking. Do your best to do exercises to get baby head down if they are not. And you may have some more vaginal discharge. So those are a couple of things to keep your eye on. Oh, and the Bishop's score. If you feel like you may need medical intervention, use the Bishop's score. I would say even if you are planning on medical intervention, I would do your best to wait until your body starts having contractions on its own. If you're getting like to 41, 42 weeks, that may not be possible, but if you can, try. But I'm not here to judge because, like I said, I've had babies all the way, and I realize that you've got to do what you got to do to get baby here, and just follow your mother's intuition and try to not let the doctors sway you on something that you feel you need to wait for. So I'll give you an example on that. My belly was measuring small with my 5th baby. They were concerned because I was not growing. Like, I was a couple centimeters behind than what I should have been, which as a mom and a woman, you're like, yay, I'm measuring small, that's nice. But when it becomes medically scary, it's not so nice. It becomes kind of scary. And my provider really encouraged me to get an ultrasound. And this is where I use my mother's intuition, and you're going to have to use your mother's intuition. This is not medical advice. Always talk to your provider, and I did talk to my provider, and she encouraged an ultrasound. She encouraged that I needed to get things checked out to make sure there was enough fluid in there for the baby and that things were looking good. And I had the feeling that I should not get this ultrasound, or at least that I needed to wait a couple days. So it was really hard sometimes to say no to the providers or to go against what they are recommending. Doesn't always feel good. In fact, it feels like you could be doing damage to your body or your baby if you do that. Nonetheless, I felt pretty strongly, and I had talked to my husband about it, and we were on board. Both of us felt the same way. And I had told him that if things didn't look good by Monday, because I think I had another appointment that day, that I would get it looked at. But lo and behold, I went into labor before my appointment, and it just, I don't know, that was one of those intuition moments where I was really grateful that I had listened, that I did not go into the ultrasound. I really feel like if I had done that ultrasound, they would have been really concerned about the fluid, and they would have wanted me to be induced, which I didn't want. So use your mother's intuition when it comes to these types of things. I understand that if it's your first time, you just don't know what to do and don't know what to expect. That's why it is wise to have a good team behind you, a good midwife, a good OBGYN, and a doula to support you in your needs and desires. So those things will help you out so much towards the end of this pregnancy. But know that there is a reason for your thoughts and your feelings, and act on them. Act on your mother's intuition. The mental tip that I want to give you for today is patience. And I did talk a little bit about this last week, or I have throughout this whole pregnancy, but nonetheless, patience is something that can be really hard. I remember the sick phase of pregnancy and telling my husband, like, why can't this just be done? Like, it was at the beginning where I was feeling absolutely miserable. I still had at least 6 weeks of sickness, and I was just fed up. And at the end of pregnancy, I usually get fed up too because I am so uncomfortable. I can't breathe, I can't move, I can't bend, I can't sleep. And I just feel very almost fed up and done. But this is a great opportunity to learn patience, to practice patience, and to not rush to something that is going to lead to a medical intervention that will not be good for you and baby. Sometimes you just want so bad for the baby to be here that you will be induced early. And unfortunately, sometimes that does lead to C-sections. Do your research on the statistics there on how often inductions lead to C-section. It can be quite often. And a C-section is like a surgery, which I realize there are women that have to have that. I had to have it myself. Nonetheless, if you don't need to, I wouldn't push it. Just practice patience, breathe, distract yourself. One way to deal with being patient is to using, sorry, I'm talking too fast and then I'm fumbling. One way to deal with being patient or to practice more patience is to use the art of distraction. Distract yourself with music, maybe pick up a little project of something you can hand make for your baby, a sewing project, crocheting project, artwork, a poem, knitting, needlepoint, cross stitch, embroidery, anything that you feel to make for baby or to do for someone else or for yourself, but to distract your mind can actually help you to inadvertently have patience because you're not thinking about how bad you want baby to be here. You're distracted with something else. So that is my mindset tip for today. Have patience and use the art of distraction to help you through. If you want more of these pregnancy-specific, focused tips that are in quick videos, 2 to 8 minutes long, I have the Morning Sickness mini course for mental health, and I know I mention this a lot, but it is called the Morning Sickness mini course because that's when I needed this course the most. And with most mamas I help and deal with, that's when they need it the most. But the videos are pregnancy specific and they help through the duration of pregnancy. So that is in the show notes as well. And we will chat again next week. Until next time. Thank you for being a part of the Positivity in Pregnancy and Motherhood podcast, for listening, for sharing, and most of all, for applying these tools into your own life to improve your own happiness so that you can find your own better thoughts and becoming the mother that you desire to be through taking small steps in thought and action to reach your goals. If you are a mother who has an inner desire to enjoy motherhood and pregnancy better, but you are having difficulty figuring it out, I can help you. Thanks for joining. Reach out, let's connect, and let's see you move forward in your motherhood. My name is Jocelyn, and I thank you for listening. Until next time.